I realized I was being followed the moment I turned off Peachtree Parkway. The city lights gave way to silence and gravel, and the headlights trailing behind me stayed locked in place. That was when my chest tightened, not from fear, but from knowing I had finally crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. This wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a setup, and somehow I had become the face of a crime that wasn't mine. My name is Arielle Monroe, and for the past 9 years I've worked as a procurement analyst for Lifeline Outreach, a non-profit that claimed to rebuild hope after disasters. People admired it. Clean reputation, polished website, smiling volunteers on brochures. My job was quiet. Move supplies, balance numbers, make sure shipments reached where they were meant to go. It was invisible work. And I liked it that way, until the day invisibility became the perfect cover to frame me. Growing up in Atlanta, I was always the middle child between brilliance and charisma. My older sister, Serena, was a rising star. Valedictorian, law school graduate, now senior counsel at one of those high-rise firms where people wear ambition like perfume. My younger brother, Malik, the golden one, a trauma surgeon saving lives and collecting headlines. And me. I was the quiet one with the spreadsheets. The one who showed up to family dinners with pie and silence. Our parents, both retired educators, never said it outright, but I could hear it in their polite smiles. "You're steady, Arielle," they'd say. "Reliable." Reliable is what people call you when they've already decided you'll never surprise them. I let it roll off me for years, until the night the call came. It was just past 2 a.m. when my work phone buzzed. A security alert from the West African Logistics Division. A shipment had been rerouted without authorization. That happens sometimes. Mistyped code, customs errors. But this one was different. The file had been modified under my account. My password. My digital fingerprint. I sat up straight, cold creeping through my skin. Maybe a system glitch, I thought. Maybe someone spoofed my login. But when I checked the digital trail, it led to one of Lifeline's secure terminals in Houston, a site I hadn't visited in over 6 months. The rerouted destination. A warehouse outside Augusta, registered to a shell company no one had ever heard of. Called my supervisor, no answer. Then I tried the compliance director, voicemail. So I made the mistake that would change everything. I decided to see for myself. The warehouse sat at the end of an abandoned industrial strip, surrounded by sagging fences and silence. It was supposed to be empty, but there were tire tracks in the dirt, fresh ones, and the low hum of a generator somewhere behind the building. I parked a block away and slipped inside through a side door. Rows of crates stretched into the shadows. My flashlight caught peeling labels, some authentic, others sloppily replaced. I checked one of the crates that had my name tied to it. Inside wasn't medical aid. It was military-grade communication devices, sealed and stamped with markings from a defense contractor. That's when it hit me. Someone was using our relief shipments to move contraband, and they were using my credentials to do it. Before I could think, I heard the crunch of boots behind me. 2 figures stepped through the darkness, dressed in plain clothes but moving like professionals. Silent, trained, efficient. One of them whispered my name. They weren't guessing. They were hunting. I dropped behind a crate, heart pounding so loud I could feel it in my throat. My flashlight slipped from my hand and clattered softly against the concrete. I didn't wait. I crawled between aisles, burst through the side exit, and sprinted toward the fence. The night air burned my lungs, gravel cutting through my shoes as I climbed the chain link and dropped to the other side. I didn't go home. I didn't even look back. By dawn, I was halfway to Savannah, running from ghosts that knew my name. I spent the next 24 hours holed up in a friend's apartment on the outskirts of Savannah. Kendra, my college roommate, didn't ask questions. She never did. I handed her my phone and simply said, "If anyone calls looking for me, I don't exist." While she slept, I used an old burner laptop to trace the data trail from the warehouse. Every digital breadcrumb led to one cryptic folder buried deep inside our servers, tagged per17v, a code I didn't recognize. When I tried to cross-reference it, one name surfaced again and again, Serena Monroe, my sister. At first I thought it had to be a glitch. Serena and I worked in completely different worlds. She was the law, the clean side of the family, not the kind of person tied to shell companies in Augusta. But the access logs didn't lie. 6 months earlier, she'd signed off legal clearances for a private contractor merging with one of Lifeline's strategic partners. That contractor was the same name tied to the warehouse lease. My hands trembled on the keyboard. It didn't feel like discovering her guilt. It felt like stepping into a trap she'd already prepared. Maybe I wasn't supposed to find this. Maybe I was meant to take the fall quietly, just like always. Sleep wouldn't come. The hum of the ceiling fan above me sounded like a distant helicopter. Steady, relentless. My mind looped through every childhood memory. Serena in her debate uniform, pinning ribbons on the living room wall while our parents clapped. Malik showing off his first newspaper feature as Atlanta's youngest trauma surgeon. And me, serving dessert, smiling through invisibility. By sunrise, grief had hardened into resolve. I wasn't going to let my sister write me out of my own story. I tunneled into Lifeline's secure archives using a proxy chain. The system's security wasn't built to stop someone who had written half the protocols. After 3 firewalls, I hit a locked archive labeled Legal Hold, Asset Integration. Serena's digital signature flashed across the access log, alongside another name, Colton Rayner. That name set off alarm bells. I remembered it from a congressional subcommittee report 2 years back. A defense consultant accused of siphoning disaster relief funds to private military contracts. The case had been dismissed quietly. I dug deeper. The metadata showed a file created by Rayner, last modified by Serena, titled Shadow Path Override. The word override alone chilled me. It meant rerouting, hiding movement, covering tracks. I clicked it open, encrypted gibberish. But I didn't need translation to feel the truth tightening around me. The shipment I'd seen in that warehouse wasn't misplaced aid. It was part of a covert export operation buried under Lifeline's humanitarian logo. And my login was the perfect scapegoat. My real phone buzzed, the one I'd told Kendra to hide. Against every rule of survival I checked it. Text from Malik. Serena says you hacked company files. What's going on, Ari? Please call. I stared at the screen, pulse hammering. Serena was already spinning the story. She was painting me as the traitor. I powered off the phone, ripped the SIM out, and dropped it into a cup of water. Then I looked at Kendra, still half asleep on the couch, and whispered, I have to go. By the time the sun cleared the horizon, I was already on the interstate, heading back toward Atlanta, back toward the family I thought I knew. There was one person I could still trust, someone who believed in rules until they broke her. Tasha. She used to be my intern, brilliant, fiery, and dangerously idealistic. Now she worked in Lifeline's compliance department. If anyone could help me prove what really happened, it was her. I texted from a clean burner. Need to meet. In person. No phones. Choose a cafe you've never been to. Say yes. 5 minutes later the reply came. Yes. You're scaring me. But yes. When we met in a corner cafe off Auburn Avenue, Tasha's hair was tucked under a baseball cap, her eyes heavy with worry. She didn't even sit before whispering. I saw the flagged shipments you mentioned. This is huge, and someone's already deleting the logs. I leaned in. Do you see Serena's name anywhere? She hesitated. Not directly. But her assistant's credentials show up on 2 erased entries. And Rayner. He's been requesting off-site approvals without documentation. Arielle, she lowered her voice. Your login wasn't cloned. It was mirrored. What does that mean? Yes. She slid a printed code sample across the table. It means someone set up a live ghost session using your token. Every keystroke, every action looked like you, but it wasn't. And if they present it as evidence, it'll hold up unless we can prove that the mirror tool was custom-built. At the bottom of the code, in messy handwriting, was a note. 4S. Let's make sure she never outshines us again. The initials were enough. I'd seen that handwriting before. On Serena's sticky notes, birthday cards, legal memos. My sister hadn't just betrayed me. She had designed the weapon that nearly erased me. I walked out of that cafe with the folder clutched to my chest like it was oxygen. The late afternoon sun bled across Auburn Avenue, long shadows stretching over the sidewalk. Every sound felt sharper. Passing cars, footsteps, the low hum of a street performer's saxophone. Everything ordinary, yet none of it safe. Tasha called after me softly. "Arielle, whatever you're about to do, be careful. This isn't just about work anymore." I didn't answer. 'Cause she was right. It wasn't. Never was. That night, I sat on the edge of my bathtub for what felt like hours, still wearing the same clothes, staring at my reflection until it looked like someone else's face. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. The faint buzz of the refrigerator, the hum of pipes. All the sounds that once meant peace now felt like reminders of how easily a life could collapse into noise and silence. I thought about Serena, about that scribbled note. Let's make sure she never outshines us again. I thought about our childhood debates at the dinner table, how she always had the last word, how she'd turn kindness into strategy and victory into proof of worth. And I realized something I hadn't before. Serena didn't just want to win. She wanted to define the game. I stood, stripped off my clothes, and stepped under the shower without turning on the hot water. The icy sting hit me like a wake-up call. I wasn't going to be her shadow anymore. When I stepped out, wrapped in an old robe, I opened my laptop. Not to hide, but to build my defense. I began documenting everything. Shipment logs, access trails, erased timestamps, notes from Tasha's findings. Every piece of proof was a thread, and I was weaving them into something undeniable. I created a new folder and titled it Echo Line, a phrase Malik once used to tease me for always repeating facts at family dinners just to be heard. Now that echo would finally have a purpose. Hours passed unnoticed. By dawn, I had mapped the entire fraud network, from Augusta's warehouse to the legal signatures leading back to Serena. But just as I was cross-checking the final set of access records, a sound jolted me, a knock. Measured. Once. Then silence. Froze. My apartment door was just a few feet away. No one knew I was here. No one except Tasha. I stepped forward quietly, looked through the peephole. No one. Then I saw it. A plain white envelope slid under the door. No stamp, no markings. Just my name in block letters. I picked it up, every instinct screaming not to. Inside was a single photograph. Grainy, but unmistakable. It was me, standing outside the Augusta warehouse, flashlight in hand. The timestamp matched the exact night I had found those crates. Someone had been watching. On the back of the photo, written in red ink, "We're not done." My stomach dropped. The threat wasn't subtle, it was a warning. That night I couldn't stay still. I drove. No destination, just motion. Highways bleeding into side roads until I found myself in East Point, parked in front of a sleek white townhouse. Serena's house. I watched from a distance. The lights inside glowed blue. Her office monitors. She was working late or maybe watching me work against her. Either way, I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. So I turned the car around and drove to Malik's townhouse instead. He was the only one who might still believe me, or at least hear me out. When he opened the door, his stethoscope still hung around his neck, and the exhaustion on his face told me he'd come straight from a night shift. "Arielle," he said softly, eyes wide. "You okay?" I stepped inside before I could lose my nerve. "She's setting me up," I said. "Serena." He blinked, frowning. "She told me you hacked company files. Said you've been unstable lately. Ari, what's happening?" Instead of answering, I handed him the folder Tasha gave me. He flipped through each page. The mirrored code, the erased entries, the photo. When he reached the note, for S, he sat down slowly like gravity had doubled. She did this," he whispered. "She built it," I said. "Every line of it." He rubbed his forehead. "But why? She's always defended you." Cut him off. "She defended me when it benefited her. when it made her look generous. But she's always wanted control. Now she has it. Over me, over Lifeline, over everything. Malik looked at me with something like sorrow. She used to say you were the heart of the family. She said that, I replied, because hearts are easy to break quietly. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he whispered, "So what do you want to do?" I stared at the folder between us. "Expose her," I said. "Completely." He hesitated, eyes flicking toward the family photo hanging by his fridge. That could destroy her career. Our family. She already destroyed it, I interrupted. He didn't argue. He didn't have to. Because that's the thing about betrayal. Once it cracks, every old fracture starts to show. After a long silence, he said quietly, "I'm coming with you." And blinked. "What?" "I believe you," he said simply. "And I'm done pretending I don't see what's in front of me." For the first time in years, I felt the tiniest spark of something I hadn't felt since we were kids. Unity. We had no plan yet. But we had each other. And that was enough to start a war. We didn't wait long. By midnight, Malik and I were driving through the quiet hills of North Atlanta, the air thick with silence and unfinished sentences. Neither of us said much. The hum of the engine filled the space where fear lived. Serena's house sat like a glass sculpture at the top of a cul-de-sac. Sharp lines, black stone, every light automated and precise. Even her home looked like it was built to win arguments. I parked down the street, my fingers drumming against the steering wheel. "You sure you want to do this?" Malik nodded. "She always keeps printed copies of contracts in her office. She doesn't trust the cloud." Of course she didn't. Control freaks never do. The security system was newer, but Malik remembered the backup code she used to test when our parents visited. Still worked. The door unlocked with a soft click, and we stepped into the scent of eucalyptus and perfection. Her house was immaculate. Not a cushion out of place, not a light bulb dim. Even her chaos had discipline. We moved quickly down the hall to her office. The walls were lined with degrees and awards, a shrine to self-accomplishment. On the far wall stood a row of black leather binders labeled by quarter. I reached for the latest one, Q3/vendor authorizations. When I opened it, my breath hitched. There it was. A printed contract bearing Serena's signature, co-signed by Colton Rayner, detailing a special procurement partnership with an offshore supplier. Under the payment column, operational hardware, non-declared cargo. It was everything I needed. I turned to Malik, whispering, "Take photos. All of it." He nodded, pulling out his phone. Then I noticed it. A small red light blinking faintly in the corner of the ceiling. A motion sensor. "She knows," I whispered. Malik froze. "How long before?" 2 minutes. Maybe less. We grabbed what we could. Folders, a portable drive labeled Backups Q4, and a spiral-bound notebook wedged behind law books. I didn't have time to check what was inside. We were halfway to the door when headlights swept across the living room. Serena's car. My pulse spiked. "Go," I hissed, but Malik didn't move. He just stared through the front window, watching her silhouette step out of the car. Cream coat, black slacks, posture like a verdict. Serena didn't rush. She never did. She just stood there, keys in one hand, eyes locked on us through the glass. Then she smiled. Not warmly, not cruelly, just knowingly. It was the same smile she'd worn the day she beat me in our first debate tournament. The smile that said, "You're too late." When she finally spoke, her voice cut through the glass like silk. Inside, it wasn't a threat. It was an order. And like gravity, we obeyed. The door clicked shut behind her. The sound was small but final, like a gavel hitting wood. Serena walked past us into the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water, and leaned against the counter with perfect composure. "I suppose you think this makes you noble," she said calmly. "Breaking in, digging, pretending to be the hero." I said nothing. "You really have no idea what you've stepped into," she continued. "You've seen pieces, Arielle, not the whole picture." I tightened my grip on the folder in my hand. I saw the crates, Serena. The signatures. The reroutes. You were using Lifeline to move weapons. Her eyes flickered. Not fear, not guilt, but something else. Judy, you think this is about profit, she said quietly. I wasn't funding a war. I was stopping one. Malik and I exchanged a stunned look. What are you talking about? She walked to her desk drawer, pulled out a file, and slid it across the counter. Inside were grainy black and white satellite photos, cargo manifests, encrypted communications, and a map of West Africa, but not one Lifeline had ever published. These were shipments from 3 years ago, she said. Weapons, surveillance tech, all funneled through fake aid groups. The same system you're exposing, only I've been trying to dismantle it quietly from within. I shook my head. So you framed me. You mirrored my login, made me look guilty, almost ruined me. For what? So you could play savior. She looked at me steadily. Because if I went missing, no one would notice. But if you did, they'd panic. They'd make mistakes. And they did. The room felt smaller. My hands shook, the file trembling between my fingers. So you used me, I said, my voice breaking. Your own sister. Serena exhaled softly. I trusted you, she said. You were the only one I knew who could survive it. Her words landed like a slap. Malik stepped forward. You could have told us, Serena. You could have asked for help. I couldn't, she replied. Because you both still believe in the version of this world that plays fair. I don't. The silence that followed felt heavy, sharp. I wanted to scream, to throw the folder, to shatter that perfect calm she wore like armor. But instead, all I said was, you still made me feel invisible. For the first time, her expression cracked. I know, she whispered. And I'm sorry. It wasn't enough. But it was something. 3 weeks later, the storm broke. Not in court. Not with sirens or handcuffs. But on the morning news. A leaked dossier hit every major outlet across the country. Operation Shadowpath. How a humanitarian network hid weapons under aid. It named contractors, shell companies, forged approvals, and corrupted executives. It didn't name Serena. Didn't name me. The whistleblower was anonymous. The media called the cache the Monroe files, a label pulled from a random file tag buried in the mirrored login logs. No one ever figured out which Monroe it referred to. That was the point. Lifeline outreach collapsed under investigation. Several of its top donors were arrested. Colton Rayner disappeared overseas. Governments opened inquiries. For the first time in my life, silence wasn't my weakness. It was my shield. Serena resigned quietly a month later. No statements, no press. Just gone. Her mansion sold within days. The firm erased her name from their website by sunrise. Malik and I still meet once a week, mostly at a small diner off Edgewood. We don't talk much about the past. Sometimes he updates me on his surgeries. Sometimes we sit in comfortable silence. Two survivors pretending breakfast is normal. The world thinks I went back to logistics. And in a way I did. I still move shipments, still track numbers. But now I run my own small operation, True Line Supply, making sure aid actually reaches where it's meant to. Quiet work. Invisible work. Except I'm not invisible anymore. Because every time I open a new shipment log, every time I approve a delivery, I see my reflection in the monitor. Steady, calm, and unafraid. The woman who once whispered facts into crowded rooms now writes truths that shake institutions. Sometimes, late at night, I replay Serena's last words before we parted. I was trying to save something bigger than all of us. Maybe she did. But in saving the world, she forgot the people inside it. And me. Finally saved myself. The echo is still there. My voice, my name, but it no longer bounces off walls waiting to be heard. Now it travels forward. Flame in motion. Proof that even the quiet ones can burn down empires when pushed too far.